Welcome back, everyone. In today's episode, I'm going to be answering some of the top questions I get as a realtor about moving to Raleigh in 2025. Today's going to be part one, and I'm going to hit the three main questions up front, and I'll cover more in future parts just so that all of these are a bit more digestible. For those that don't know me, I'm Domingo from eXp Realty, and with that, let's get into it. All right, so question number one, this is always the biggest one, which is, are interest rates going to go down in 2025? The bottom line up front is we don't know. Obviously, from the perspective of affordability, we hope that it does go down, but the intent is to help curb some of the inflation by keeping the rates high. Pair that with a highly volatile political environment, and we don't really know. So what to actually do about that? There's two main options that I would recommend. Option one is the obvious one, and that's wait, which I have a little bit more to follow on that. And then option two is to buy and refinance later, which also more to follow. Back to option one, honestly, waiting is the most common thing that I'm seeing nowadays. The vast majority of my friends or people that I run into whenever I host an open house often say, hey, I'm just looking around and maybe I'd buy the perfect home if I come across it. But other than that, I'm looking to buy in a year from now. The advantage of this one is obvious. It's just the safe pick. But then of course the disadvantage is the opportunity cost. And this really leads into option two, which is buy and refi. Now this is what I personally did back in August of 2022. I bought a duplex in Raleigh and I'm house hacking by renting the top unit out as an Airbnb. The theory here is that if that interest rates drop and housing prices rise because it becomes cheaper to borrow money, then you have bought in when the price was lower. And then 6, 9, or 12 months later, however your mortgage is structured, when the interest rates drop, you then capture that lower price with the lower interest rate. Now, to be clear, this is more of a playbook. You don't ever buy a home that you can't afford as it currently is. This is just a game plan if interest rates do fall. And overall, sort of the main takeaways, this is painting a story in which you recognize that you can't truly game the market. All you really ever have are just options and then reactions. So don't buy outside of your means. And if you can't afford any of the current options, then it's just better to wait. But ultimately, we just don't know, so it's best to have an informed decision with pre-planned actions. All right, so the second question, where do you expect housing prices to be? The short answer is up. There's only really two options that I see as likely. Like, of course, the prices could go down, which we saw between November and December. But that's likely a seasonal thing because prices tend to go down in December. But likely we're just gonna see the prices go mildly up, which matches appreciation and inflation. Or option two, it's gonna skyrocket, depending on how the mortgage market goes, the political landscape, and the buyer psychology. Now, the price is shooting way up. That just follows the same train of logic that I answered in the previous question about interest rates going down, demand being super high, and COVID era happens all over again. Nobody really has hard data to say that this is absolutely gonna happen. So I'm gonna call this the secondary option, which means that more than likely the prices just continuously climb by a little bit. Depending on where you're buying in the triangle, this could be anywhere from 3%, 4% to as much as 8%, which is sort of the peak growth that we saw in some areas like Wake Forest. And so similar to the first question, this leads to a main takeaway of there really isn't a perfect time. So two cases in point. So the second client I ever had was looking to move into the Durham area, but had plenty of time to just wait and feel out the market. So with that, she started looking for homes late November, early December. Now, part of the issue was because this is the off season, she kept running in the homes that were not really 100% fitting the bill. Oftentimes, some of these homes just needed a little bit of work. But then whenever that perfect home would hit the market, it would be gone within 1 to 3 days. One time, one of the homes that she really liked went under contract before it actually went live. So what this means is that a lot of the homes are mostly sitting. So if you're looking for a good deal, you could buy at this time. What she ended up doing was buying a live and flip, which is a common solution that I see where people get tired of searching and not being able to find the right home. They just settle with a home that needs work. They get a super great deal on it. They put in the work, they move in. And then overall, it ends up becoming a great deal. It's just more labor intensive. And for the other example was a set of buyers of mine that were getting out of the military, retiring, and moving up to the Triangle area. One of them was starting school over in Wake Forest and wanted to be near that. Part of the issue is during summer, it's pretty typical to see the prices go up. So this sort of by process of elimination pushed them out to the suburbs, which honestly kind of worked for them because they preferred a house with trees and a big lot anyways. Now at this point, people are identifying homes that are in super high demand and sometimes even putting in above asking offers. So what we ended up doing for them in order to help them out is we were just on top of the home search. When a new home popped up, we were the first people to see that home. In this particular case, it was an open house, so I went with them to the open house. I engaged with the seller's realtor. I gave them the space to look around at the home and decide amongst themselves if they were still interested. And I just sat there and built some rapport. I was like, oh, hey, I noticed that your seller has something on there about the Navy. Like my clients are also military and they're getting out and they don't really know any vets in the area and they're looking to connect. And ultimately this house ended up having multiple offers and the seller specifically picked my clients just because of that personal connection. Now, to be fair, because I knew this property was going to go fast, they also had a respectable due diligence fee and earnest money deposit. So in any case, the expectation for 2025 is going to be more or less the same as this past year. Prices will be a little bit higher just as a natural curve for appreciation and inflation. There's tactics you can implement during the off season as well as the busy season. And in the event that prices go crazy and demand shoots through the roof, inventory shoots through the roof, then honestly, it just goes back to the COVID playbook, which is be prepared, move fast, offer high. All right, so on to the last question, which is where are the more affordable area? Short answer is the outskirts, and then like I mentioned earlier, the live-in flips. So the outskirts, we most notably see places like Nightdale and Wake Forest as the most affordable. But of course, you have other places like Apex, Holly Springs, Fuquay. And just to put it in perspective, I pulled up some of the market stats. The average home in Raleigh last year was selling for about $590K. For Cary, it was $677K, and for Durham, it was $474K. In all those suburban areas that I just mentioned, it's pretty easy to find homes that are at or below that price point. And these are oftentimes well-maintained homes. You can find new construction, and you're gonna find that the city's investing in its own internal development since the demand is increasing. And so then the second thing is, like I mentioned, the live and flip option. For those that really like deal hunting, you could do the live and flip anywhere, even at the outskirt areas that I just mentioned. But for those who don't really care for this as much, you can always make this a backup plan. So if you have the time to afford to just sit and wait, you don't need to buy a home, you don't need to move, then you can just wait for the right deal to come up. But let's say, for example, whenever I'm running an open house in the summer, oftentimes I'm running into people who are like, I need to be up here by August. In that case, if you start early enough, you can integrate live and flip as a backup option. If you're gonna be doing the flip yourself, like painting, flooring, and some landscaping, just be prepared to be working pretty much every single weekend on the house for at least a month, but it could easily be more. If you're gonna hire it out, then that sort of work can be done in anywhere between 2 to 4 weeks. All that is just to say, plan your timeline accordingly. Which if you're working with me, we're gonna talk timeline and have all these thresholds pre-identified, so that way the home buying process is just a game plan and it simplifies everything. But anyways, so that's it for part 1. I'm gonna be doing this again for next week's video. So if you have any questions you want me to answer, just leave them in the comments. I've got a whole list of questions to go through, but I could also get to specific questions that are coming from viewers as well. If you're looking to get started with your home buying process in the triangle, then feel free to reach out. My contact information is always below. You can also find it on my channel page. With that, thanks again, and I will see you next week.